for the city of Green Bay on Tuesday, May 24th. We'll start out with roll call. Alder Johnson.
Here.
Alder Hutchinson.
Here.
Alder Galvin is here, and since Alder Burnett is not here, I'm going to assume that based on what our conversation was earlier today, he's not going to make it. So we have enough for a quorum, and so we'll move forward. I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, and are there any changes they want to make?
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And that passes unanimously. On to regular business. Item number 1, consideration with possible action on the request to fill the following replacement positions and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers for a civil engineer out of Public Works. If we have no questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Item number 2, consideration with possible action to increase the document center lead from 0.94 FTE to 1.00 FTE. If no one has any questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion on that.
How do we get to a 0.94 position?
I believe it's 37 and a half hours.
That's correct.
Righty. So if there are no questions,
I'll move to approve.
okay.
Second.
All those in favor? say
Just
aye.
a little background for you, Alder Johnson. Many of the represented positions that were formerly represented by Bay Area AFSCME were at that 37 and a half. Little by little over the years, most of those positions have been upgraded to 40-hour positions, but there still are a few of them out there.
So the council can expect more positions to move from 37 and a half to 40. And I think the next budget, and we'll have the justification for that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 That passes unanimously. On to item number 3, consideration with possible action to add AmeriCorps positions to the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department contingent upon the City Council approving the AmeriCorps grant. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
Yeah, it wasn't immediately clear to me. There's a city match to this of 120,000, I believe. Where does that come from?
I don't know if we have Director Ditchite or Deputy Director Anderson.
Yeah, I'm James Anderson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Parks Department. So that match comes from our budget, essentially. So that's funding our Conservation Corps coordinator position, and we're paying, that's our city staff that we're budgeting for. So that's the biggest chunk of it. And then the rest is the match that we need to have in order to fulfill the grant requirements per, the AmeriCorps grant. We need to match 24% overall, so it's coming from our budget.
So that funding's already been allocated in your budget?
That we are going to bring the grant approval at a different time. This is essentially coming to you guys so we can move forward with starting to recruit for these positions, but we're going to bring the actual grant approval at a different meeting.
So you're asking for consent to recruit for positions funded by a grant that we are going to approve at a later date? It seems like that process should be the opposite.
Yeah, and traditionally it is, but I would say we're very, very receive this grant, and in order to fulfill the grant requirements, which have these 6 positions starting in September, we're needing to essentially start to recruit them right away. Otherwise, there's no way by the time this grant gets officially approved, potentially probably by the end of June or very early July, there'd be no way to have that turnaround in time to fulfill those 6 positions in time for that September start date.
Okay.
So,
And so I'm seeing maybe different body language from Director Ellenbecker about the source of funding. Could we just get some clarity on that perhaps?
James, I don't know exactly how much Dan filled you in on this, but I did double check with him. And so really in the 2022 budget, we're going to need about an additional $20,000. That was not, but 120,000 is going to be the match, and that is going to be needed for 2023. That is not included in the budget this year. So that will be up and above what our current budget is for this program.
And so is the,
James, does that sound in line with what you would have heard?
yes.
so the expectation, I presume then, would be that when the grant agreement comes forward, we're going to also have to identify where that additional funding would come from. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, I would defer to Director Ellenbecker again, but I believe we would propose that in our 2023 budget approval to add that additional cost in there.
But do we even have enough for the 2022 budget?
We do currently, yes. So we're proposing, the main part of that would become from our seasonal staff budget that we're not allocating because we essentially have programs that will not be running at what we budgeted due to staff shortages. So that main part of that 20,000 will come from that if needed. But we're also actually, as part of this grant, we're doing a sponsorship donation package where we'll be looking to actually secure those, that funding through donations and or sponsorships. So there's multiple ways that we can find that $20,000. And we're very confident that we can find that 20,000 in this year's budget.
Okay, so and again, I just want to be clear, 20,000 this year's budget, but then if we accept the grant, there will be an obligation to add $100,000 into next year's budget for the total of the $120,000 match. Is that correct?
I don't think that's correct. I think it's $120,000 starting next year. It's $20,000 more this year in our 2022 budget. And then it would be another $120,000 starting in 2023.
Can I just chime in here? This is Maria Otto. I'm the Green Bay Conservation Corps coordinator. Alder Johnson, you were correct. That 120 is the total for the grant. So this additional 20 for the 20,000 that we need for the rest of 2022 would count against that 120. So we need 20,000 for the end of 2022. In the year 2023, it would be that 100,000. So you were correct in your assumptions.
Okay, so be clear about process and make sure everyone's on the same page. I mean, if we accept this grant in 2022 and we hire these folks, this essentially will obligate us to put that $100,000 in next year's budget because we've accepted the grant. Would that be an accurate assumption?
I'm going to agree with that. I think that is the expectation. I think when we talked to Director Ditchite, that yes, I do have an email from Dan. He also mentioned that he was hoping that Maria, as she just spoke, is also going to try to find additional grants to help offset some of the expenses. But at this point, there will be, and for this program, there will be an increase in the 2023 budget to run this program.
Okay, so I mean, I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, can someone, I'd like to ask some questions before we get into motion.
Sure, go ahead, Alder.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, I'm acting like I'm the chair. Go ahead, Bill.
That's all right. I'm used, well, anyway. First off, I was doing the math on the salaries for the 15 seasonal and the 6 full-time employees. This whole thing is budgeted for $500,000. when I did the salaries or the per diems as they're called, I came out with just, I think just shy of $300,000. What is the other $200,000 for?
Answer
bad math.
that.
Yeah, I would defer to Maria for that.
Yeah, so that other 200, 61 goes to my salary, which is split between the grant and the city share. And then the rest goes to supplies to do the actual conservation work. So the equipment costs, the safety equipment, the native plants and trees, the boardwalk materials. So that's more of a materials and supplies cost.
Okay. And this is probably more for James or for Joe. The seasonal employees, I mean, this isn't, we're not going to start using the lack of seasonal employees every year to augment other projects that, and I'm not sure, I also got to ask some questions on this, but it seems like this project's kind of coming in late. And I'm just wondering was there some issues? Did this grant come up late in the process, or is that just the way the federal government does it? Because as our budgeting process moves ahead, like Alder Johnson said, it's kind of like the cart's in front of the horse here, in a manner of speaking, at least for 2022. So I'm just.
I think Maria would probably answer this the best, but this did come forward last year. We talked about it, and it is a little, I think, cart before the horse in the sense of, we had Maria in place to kind of get this program up and running, and now we're applying for this grant, which is coming down the pike in a couple of months. And so it is kind of a waiting game on that. So, and to answer the other question about we're not going to have seasonal staff, I think we also had a discussion of that the salary line items not being used for other projects. So I think we try to not do that. And I think that's the directive to departments to make sure you're not taking your either lack of staff or turnover and using it for other projects or budgeted items. But I think sometimes when you look at this program, AmeriCorps, and I don't want to speak for Director Ditchite or anyone, but when you look at AmeriCorps, which is kind of seasonal programs and the lack of staff for seasonal programs in parks, maybe that seems like it's a good fit in this situation for the 2022 year budget.
Right, and I remember when we approved Maria's position, and the long view was to get her in place and then start getting the grants and have that coming in. It's just kind of surprising me it's late coming after, she's been here for a little while. I would have thought that the feds would have moved a little bit faster on this. So, I mean, they must understand the municipalities have budgets that they have to do. And, I mean, it's just, I guess that's just a little bit of my angst here. I'm happy to hear, though, that everyone's cognizant of the fact that we're not going to be milking other positions that aren't being filled to do this. So, I mean, next year we could have an issue. If all our seasonal positions are filled, then we're going to have to find another $100,000, either through cuts or through increase in taxes or, whatever means we find, or like you said, raising the money on the side by donations and that kind of stuff. I'm happy to see that so much of that budgeted is going to go for, materials and that, so it's not all falling again on the taxpayers locally. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Did you want me to do a quick outline of the timeline and why it is so late in the year?
I mean, if what you're telling me is it's legitimate the way everything came down, I'll accept your word for it.
Yeah, it's just AmeriCorps', their program year is from September to August is when their program year starts. So all of their grant funding their applications don't open until March, and then they don't close until May. So we just finished our application.
Okay. I mean, I'm excited to see what they can do. I mean, Mr. Anderson before about the Bears Creek area and some of the other areas in the city. They're starting to do a lot, but again, budget constraints restrict that. We've gotten some help from the Bear Creek preservation, but I'm thinking what, almost 20 people can do for some of these projects. I think the citizens will be surprised and impressed with how much more access they can have to some of these areas.
That's true.
Are there any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I would move to approve, but I'd like to add two contingencies. One, of course, the contingency of actual approval of the grant, which is coming at a later date. And the other contingency I'd like to add is a request, I guess, to have staff come back with that grant proposal, but also include a sketch, a rough plan of how they intend to privately raise dollars for the program. So I don't need specific outcomes, but I would like a little bit of discussion or presentation on what their strategy and plan is to do that.
Alder Falls,
Right.
yeah, Chief Falls.
So, yeah, just one clarification with that. So for the Parks Department, do you want them to come back to personnel before they submit the grant and show you what they're submitting? Is that what you're asking for?
I guess I don't know what you're asking, Joe. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. Then I guess maybe it sounds like James understood. I thought you meant that because Parks Department's going to go forward and submit this application, and I think it's already submitted. Is that correct? It's already submitted. So we're just waiting for them to get back to us.
We've already gotten preliminary approval through the first step of the state approval process. Now we're just waiting on the federal approval process. So in general, I can't say that we're absolutely going to get it, of course, but the probability of us not getting it, I would be really surprised if we didn't.
So the question I have then is, so what did you mean by staff to come back with the grant proposal?
Saying that we don't actually hire these individuals until we actually approve the grant, right?
Yeah,
that we have the money, that we have the award, we can verify that. And then the fundraising piece, why I added that as a second contingency is, I've seen this many times, right? Where it's, hey, we're going to help fundraise for this position, but then council, in this instance, authorizes you to do it, whether we raise the money or not. And then the fundraising piece just goes because you got the authorization. So that's why I'm saying when we actually talk about approval of the grant, at the same time, I would like us to talk about what the strategy is to privately raise dollars.
That is helpful. And I think just for clarity for everyone, Director Ditchite, the Parks Department, and including myself, I think we will start recruiting for these positions, knowing that potentially the program might not go forward. And that's just something we'd have to deal with if that's okay with the council.
Yeah, and I think that's the intent of the motion. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Let me see. Gosh, another short meeting. Any questions on the report of routine personnel actions for regular employees?
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, our next meeting is June 21st, 2022.
Move to
Entertain a
adjourn.
motion. There we go. Second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, see you back in a few minutes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gee.